We have seen people build from simple things like chat with PDF to a border officer building a passport control agent for some reason. Like all kind of weird stuff. There's a sports team in Toronto. Their coach used to be a programmer, and he has vibe coded one agent per player for their nutrition plan and their context. And he's having a day. I'm like, holy shit, I could never even have thought about it, right? And he is so far away from the debate of this framework versus that framework versus React versus Ruby. I think agents are just new type of code. And
hello, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Web Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Ocel, the VP of Innovation at This.Labs, here with some of my favorite co-hosts. First, we have Adam Rackis, Senior Software Engineer at Spotify. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. And, of course, we have Danny Thompson, the Director of Technology at This.Labs. Danny, how are you doing?
I'm here, man. I'm excited for today's episode. We've been traveling a lot recently and kind of tired from that, but I'm excited to get some episodes down.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, we were traveling a lot, and so for the people that are viewers of this episode, you may notice the background is different here, because as I was traveling, my wife finally decided she was tired of all my stuff sitting around, not being hung up, and hung all my little gizmos and gadgets up. So very exciting for those of you that are visual fans of the podcast.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. I think she did her thing, man. It looks really, really good.
She did. She did. Absolutely. Yeah. And, she might be starting a business doing this maybe in the future because it's quite successful. I don't know.
There's some people that do it
already.
Yeah, there's some people that do it. There's a whole company of people on Twitter that will fly over to make like all these backgrounds for streamers and whatnot.
All right. Well, hey, you know what they say. Maybe they should build an agent for that. And, that leads us to our topic for today and our guest. We have Ahmad Awais, who's the CEO and founder at LangBase. Ahmad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah, we're very excited about this topic, about agents. I mean, everybody's talking about them. We're very excited to hear about Chai, this tool that y'all have been building. I think we're going to get into all of that. But first, maybe start us off by defining some terms. I think, especially when it comes to AI, people have different ways of defining things, different ways of describing things. So when it comes to talking about agents today, what do we mean? What is an agent for the purposes of our conversation here?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most hot topic right now in everybody's mind. Like, how do you define this? And I think I have a very different definition of this than, what you probably have heard from most people. I'll probably lean in heavily into my background here, right? Like 20 years ago when I started contributing to the HTML5 spec, right? I thought like, oh, this was cool. And then there were PHP forms. Oh, this was cool, right? And then I ended up like, core contributing to WordPress for JavaScript. And then I was like, okay, PHP and JavaScript talking to each other is the coolest thing ever, right? Then we got webhooks. I'm like, oh, this feels like a new paradigm, right? Then Ryan came in and he was like a C++ developer building Node.js. And we were hooked. JavaScript should be everywhere, right? So I've been through all of this. I've contributed to Node and all of the fun stuff, right? And to me, it feels like agents are just code. It's just it's a new paradigm, right? It's how we are going to write code. Code is now a lot more capable, right? I remember when I had to just sit and refresh the dashboard again and again, and then we got webhooks that just you don't have to do that anymore, and that felt like autonomous, right? The code was just doing things it was supposed to do. Our workflow was built or whatnot. And right around that time, I think we got companies like Zapier or whatnot using those webhooks to build workflows. I think agents are just code. It's just a new paradigm that people who are studying computer science now would just think of as like, oh yeah, this is how you write code, right? Agents are nothing new. I think that is why everybody's kind of struggling to define what an agent is. I think agent is a new type of code that can make decisions and can take actions, right? And I'll probably share a little bit more. I think a lot of people think that, I often ask people, like I was just doing this guest lecture at Stanford 2 days ago. And there were like a lot of amazing leaders there. It was a like leadership class learning about AI, right? And my question to all of them was like, what did happen? Why are we here? All of a sudden, why does why does everybody care about AI, right? And the most common answer I got was Chat GPT, right? And I kind of disagree, right? I think Chat GPT is not the biggest, you know, revolution in this space. It's this thing that happened like a couple years back, like I think around 2018. A cool, really smart set of people discovered something called self-attention, right? In the moment you understand what self-attention is, all of a sudden you can easily understand what is an agent and why it is different from everything else, right? So self-attention is very similar to the actual attention that we have as humans, right? Like for example, if I were to ask you, Danny, when did you go to school, right? Maybe that was like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, not guessing your age, by the way, right? Your brain will instantly put focus to something that happened like a decade ago, fill your brain, your L1 cache with the right context, and you will be quickly able to answer, oh, I remember, like, I went to this school and we used to do that. And instantly your focus and your attention will be on something completely different. That happened so far away back in the time, right? So for the longest of the times, I think a lot of us wanted to invent this attention as a software algorithm, right? It's not, a lot of people call it natural language processing. I don't think that is natural language processing. It's understanding how humans understand things, right? So when that was invented as an algorithm, they called it self-attention algorithm. Now we have so many variants of it, like, flash attention is what I think the chief scientist of Together AI invented, right? It's just that thing that we do as humans. We understand what we are talking about. That attention that we have, self-attention, is that algorithm. And what all these giant research labs like OpenAI, what they did was they used that algorithm on all of the public data available, like all of the Wikipedia or whatnot. So that algorithm now thinks that Wikipedia is its life. So it can just go back in time to whatever article and quickly answer, because it can put focus on any piece of that, right? And it can also do that with your query, right? So my most common example for that is, I picked up, I hit the ball with my bat, right? Like a software algorithm cannot understand what bat I'm talking about here, right? Is it the Batman? Is it the bat, the animal, or the actual baseball bat? But as humans, it's very easy for us to make the connection by looking at the word ball and bat, like, oh yeah, it's the baseball bat, right? So that is what that thing is, the self-attention, right? And when we got that, chat is the biggest interface there is. Like I could never really understand why my parents preferred WhatsApp over email. I think the chat interface has something to it that people really like. So Chat GPT got viral, obviously, but that self-attention thing is super powerful. And what it lacks is access to your private data, like your health records or anything like that, right? And that is where the opportunity is. The business opportunity is huge in that, right? Your payments data or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Now that for the first time the software has self-attention and it can understand things, we can get it to do things as well, right? We don't have to just, here's what am I talking about? This is what you're talking about. That is just so benign, right? Like, you wouldn't hire somebody just, talk about stuff, right? That is called Gen AI, when you're just generating stuff. You can get it to do things. So agents are pieces of software. It's just code where you are using the self-attention algorithm that LLMs are trained on to do things like you would, or somebody else, like, if you were to hire a sales guy or a marketing person, like they would, right? So this is the new thing about agents. It's otherwise it's just code. We are writing just the same type of code that we used to. It is just a lot more. What should I say? It has language in it, so it's a lot less reliable than the code we are used to, right? So which is changing a lot very, very quickly as the LLMs are getting better, right? So what do you think about that?
I like that phrasing, and I think it also that gives the context to your description at the beginning that these agents are really kind of like an evolution, like an evolutionary tool, right? We have this idea that maybe self-attention was the Java Spring piece, and maybe ChatGPT then was the jQuery, and then but it just feels like we are speed running the history of these tools and the evolution of these tools so quickly, because now we're getting to the point, and we're gonna be talking about this in a second, where not only do we have agents, but now we're going to have agents building agents. And like, it just feels like we keep adding layers of abstraction so rapidly, like month by month, it seems like.
Yeah. Uh, Never, I call this everybody's building everything space, right? And there's just so much overlap, right? There's almost absolutely no moat in doing anything at all. That is, how everybody feels like. But this is also like part of my belief and faith that you cannot replace humans. That is just impossible, right? Like even with, I know Chai is a cool name, our new product, right? Like I am a heavy chai drinker. I love chai. I've come from, like Danny is laughing. I know, like he also loves chai, but what chai helped me with was it had the word AI in it. I get it, right? But right, but it's computer human AI.
I hadn't made the connection. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right, that's even better, right? It has H in the middle, so human is in the middle. Human is able to use the computer and AI, computer human AI, right? That's the pipe dream for me, like, putting humans in the front and center seat of this, right? Letting them use both. We've gotten to use computers. Now we can use AI alongside with that, right? I think humans are going to be able to do a lot more capable things with this new paradigm. And I don't think we are going away.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think humans. There's this whole rhetoric that AI will replace humans. I think because of that, some software developers are defensive. I'm seeing some people being way more defensive at the junior side than any other level, mainly because they just think like, I just spent all this time learning this thing. Now you flip the world upside down on me, and now I may be out of a role because of it, which I get. Totally makes sense. I personally just look at it as like an amazing productivity tool. Like you can exponentially increase the productivity of the code that you write, the things that you're doing. One prime example, right? I was literally doing this last night. We launched the Commit Your Code website. The conference is coming back. And one thing that I had AI doing is, hey, we have all this text that as we were speed coding, like it's all hard-coded values. Can you go through real fast and make everything into a label and put it in a label file that we can put it in the CMS? Now I can focus on all the logic again without worrying about like how it's doing these labels, right? Which I think is fantastic. But with Chai just coming out, I was very lucky and privileged to be one of the first people to kind of get access to it. So I feel kind of special in that regard, right? But you've had explosive growth, in my opinion, right? Which I think is fantastic for you and the tool and the org as a whole. I saw some very wild numbers going out as to the number of agents that were created just within like the first week alone. You want to share some value in that, and maybe like if someone just doesn't know what Chai is, maybe giving them an idea of like what they could potentially use this for?
Yeah, awesome. But thank you for beta testing, by the way, or alpha testing, since Chai is still beta, right? Let me take a step back. I think what would really help is if I were to share a little bit more about how we got here, right? So Chai.new, CHAI.new, is computer human AI. It's a product by LangBase, which is a coding agent, but it is an agent that can code new agents for you, right? So it's a little bit how we're not done with the messaging. It's pretty new, like it's like 10 days old, but it's an agent that can build more agents for you, right? And since building agents is a new paradigm, and a lot of people do not know how to do it, it really helps. Especially a lot of people are just using it to learn, oh, so this is how I would build this agent. Oh, right. Most of the times they're trying to build something so complicated that it doesn't really work, but it gets you to that 90% mark. So let me take a step back and tell you how we got here. So it's 2020. I'm traveling a lot. Being in DevRel or whatnot, I was VP of developer relations at this company called Rapid API. I took it from seed to unicorn stage, right? And I do not like travel, right? So in this COVID thing is going on, and COVID has not become the global pandemic yet. So I wrote this tool called Corona CLI to track COVID data before it was big. And it was like Perplexity. So I scrapped a bunch of data, and I could ask it, like, if I go to Italy, will I die? If I go to pick up TP from Costco, will I die? Right? Stuff like this. And all of a sudden, in the Bay Area, the COVID hits and everything gets shut down. This is the only CLI tool that is available. I remember going back to like San Jose Hospital and seeing this on their LED monitors and calling like, "Look, Ma, this is the peak of my career. My CLI tool is being used by a hospital, right?" And what, I think I remember getting like, I don't know, 10 billion API requests in a month, right? It absolutely blew up, went viral, no puns intended, right? But what it got me was like a quick meeting with Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. This is 2020 we are talking about, right? So Greg gave me access to GPT-3. GPT-3 was just a month old. It's the model that never got launched. I think we got GPT 3.5 and then Turbo and Chat GPT, right? So in 2020, mid 2020, July, I get access to GPT-3, and I make a small bot to toy around with my friends who do not know that AI can do this kind of fun stuff right now. And they're very happy that they have somebody, responding to them no matter when they, talk. So, I had my fun with it, and I built something silly called LangBase. It was just supposed to be a silly project to help people. It was like a playground, you can just talk to AI and build software, sentiment analyze user messages and tell me if the user is happy or there's no code in that, right? And over the years, this became huge to a point where we are now processing about, I think, 200 to 300 million AI agent runs per month, right? So in around like late 2023, I'm talking to a couple of friends. I reached out to one of my acquaintances who founded GitHub, Tom Preston Werner. He kind of told me like, why don't you build this as a company, right? And a couple other folks like, founder of Replit, founder of Snake Socket. And I ended up building this thing called LangBase, which the idea behind LangBase is, what if we could enable everybody to build agents, right? And I'm still thinking technically, right? I'm thinking about people who know how to send API requests, developers, right? Who wear shorts, who do not go to peer-reviewed conferences, who do not read research papers, do not have PhDs, right? They are like 40, 50 million of these, engineers who are getting laid off because of whatever is happening nowadays. What if they could be the AI engineers, right? The implementers, the product side of the AI engineering, right? So we built this thing without a framework, which has primitives, right? You want to build an agent. There's a defined standard that I built called Pipe, Prompt Instruction Personalization Engine, which has RAG built into it, which has a vector store built into it. We call it memory agents. You don't have to understand how semantic similarity works. You don't have to understand semantic caching, semantic chunking, parsing, all these primitives. We built this as an infrastructure company. And it's going great, right? It's working out. We are hitting the numbers. We are growing, and we are like now 11 people. And one thing happened. So I do not use Cursor or Copilot or any of these tools because I got access to GPT-3 like 5 years ago. I started building a silly CLI, which I generally call CLAI, that I've been building, which understands how I write code, right? And I've been using Claude with it lately or whatnot. It's a silly AI agent that I call my co-founder of sorts. Last year, what happened was it somehow got access to, somebody messed up with permissions and it got access to our sandbox environment, which is almost as close to our production environment, right? And how that agent works is, I basically just run experiments with it. You have like 10 to $100 worth of daily budget. Just go fix things in my life, right? And most of the time it's a dud, right? It doesn't do it, just waste my money. But sometimes it comes up with something that is really, really good. So around October last year, I think that is when Andrej Karpathy talked about vibe coding or whatnot. And, so this agent has access to my Twitter feed, right? So it's listening to that talk and it's listening to, all the trends going on, and it starts to do something very weird. So LangBase is a company that helps you build agents, right? So it downloaded all of the LangBase docs, created a memory, and now created an agent that can create agents. And that happened without us telling it that you should do this. Or anytime, like, how you can chat with a PDF, you upload your PDF and now, you can just chat with it. What it created was a chat with a PDF, but it was chatting with our docs. But our docs were about like building agents. So it was in fact printing out code. So for any agent. And then what I did was, so we have this onboarding process like every other company. When you onboard and you register on LangBase, you tell us like, this is my dream, this is the agent I want to build. I have like thousands of those entries every day. We feed that as a training data to this thing, and it starts to build all those agents. Then we build a evaluation bench, and it's doing really well. Like 90% of agents are doing really, really well. And we are like blown away, like, what is this thing? And we still underplay it. We're like, okay, we will use this for POCs. Anybody who comes up like, what if I had this agent, and during the meeting, we will just build that agent for them, right? And one day I was just super tired, and I did it in front of a friend, and he was like, can I get access to this thing? So that thing became Chai, right? So Chai is our frontier research in figuring out how you don't even have to understand this new tech, right? It will still give you the complete code, right? You know how you probably have heard about V0, Lovable, or Bolt. You can just tell it like, this is the kind of website I need, and they will build it for you, right? Vibe code it for you. My personal, I really love these tools, but I do not need 100 websites, right? So there's a limited amount of usage I have for these tools, right? But I definitely need hundreds of little small AI agents helping me on this and that way, right? So Chai has become that internally for us. So we just, instead of putting it behind a wait list, we just launched it, right? Like, what if there was a tool that understood everything you can do with LangBase, any kind of AI agent you want to build? Probably, like, let's say 90% of agents, that you can build, right? Like, if you go and ask it, chat with PDF, it will figure out everything. Just 3 words, and it will figure out that you need a memory. It will give you a memory. You can upload your docs in it or whatever. It will also give you a code, like if you want to do it dynamically through code, right? Upload a lot of data, right? And then it will also build you the API that is built on top of us. So there's no security concern, right? Because our product is not a database, right? Like, there is database in there, we have state, but it only writes code that is production ready. And then it will build you that API that can infinitely scale, like millions of calls a day, right? And then we also created agent apps, which we are launching next week, right? So every agent comes with an agent app, right? Which is like a UI, in all of the code you get, right? There's nothing proprietary here, right? You get all of the code. You can choose to download it and use it as a local CLI, what have you, do what you will with it, right? But the thing that was a major unlock for me, and I think for everybody, is that any AI agent idea you have, it gets you to almost the finish line, right? Sometimes it's like, because agents are very complicated, right? People are trying to do a lot with agents, like, and I often end up telling people, like, do not do 5 + 5 = 10 with vibe coding. That is not how it works. Do 1 + 2 + 2 + 3 + 2. Get to it with small little steps. Like, you just hired a guy or a girl in your team. You won't throw the entire year's worth of workload at them on day one, right? You will get them ready. You will tell them about the context. You will get them to win a little bit, and then you will improve them. That is how you build agents. And my biggest fear, and by the way, you talked about stats. I think we've crossed over 60,000 AI agents vibe coded, built, and deployed with Chai in less than 2 weeks, right? This is unbelievable for me.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the amount of files we had to put out to scale that kind of infrastructure. We're a very small team, right? But what's my biggest fear was that people will think that, oh, this is Lovable or V0. I build some website with it, or they will think that this is maybe Claude or ChatGPT, and they will try to chat with it. And I was like, I'm a control freak. I was freaking out when we launched it. I was like having almost technical panic attacks, is how I call it. Right? So, but most of the people somehow just know that what is an agent, right? We have seen people build from simple things like chat with PDF to a border officer building a passport control agent for some reason, right? Like, all kind of weird stuff. There's a sports team in Toronto. Their coach used to be a programmer, and he has vibe coded, one agent per, player for their nutrition plan and their context. Like, everybody's different, everybody has different allergies or whatnot, and he's having a day. I'm like, holy shit, I could never even have thought about it, right? And he's so far away from the debate of this framework versus that framework versus React versus Ruby. all he cares about is, can it do what I want it to do? And if it doesn't, he can always go hire people like us, right? Like, can you get it to like the last 10%, get it to the finish line, right? Which is what I think we used to do, right? React was there. You would hire a React developer because he could or she could build that tool you wanted without wasting a lot of time, without actually building React, right? So I think agents are just new type of code, and what we are doing with Chai is you've practically basically hired me with Chai. You pay $20 a month, and you have somebody, an agent that has almost the similar knowledge that I have of our system, and can potentially build you anything on top of our platform. And that thing becomes, since it is an agent, I think it is the first on-demand AI engineer, not an engineer built with AI. It's the actual AI engineer that can build agents for you, right? And people are having a day with it, right? So I'm pretty excited, right?
Yeah. I mean, the promise of this too, especially with like orchestration and sort of agent spotting agents, is this idea that you could have, your personal assistant agent that realizes you just asked it to do something that's beyond its capabilities, and beyond MCPs, it could even just decide that it's going to spin up now a permanent agent that will give all future requests like that too. And you're just sort of building up like a hiring agency of different agents assisting you in different ways. I just think that's such an exciting idea. That's really, like you said, because it's all sort of natural language at the core, not a very high barrier for people to implement for themselves.
I think you picked up on a very good point that I would like to kind of clarify. So when the web space sort of began, we expected hosts, the hosting companies like GoDaddy to do everything for us, like build a page builder, give me a cart. Like there was no Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever, right? And slowly and steadily, when we understood that, we need e-commerce, right? And then there were things that were built, right? I think agents are at that stage where the expectation from an orchestration tool like, LangBase is just a lot, like build me everything end to end so I can figure this out, right? And I think a lot of people ask me, the most common question that I've gotten around this is, how is Chai different from Menace or Cursor or all these general purpose coding agents, right? In my take at this is, which you are saying, build a team of agents or whatnot. Or I think that is such a natural thing to a human that you just described. It's such a big thing for me. Like, for example, when you ask Cursor to build an API endpoint for you, it would not know a thing about how you build API endpoints. And you can probably write some Cursor rules or whatnot. It would still be very static. And you have just no control over it. It's almost like, the page builder we used to have in Dreamweaver, no control over it. If the component is there, we can drag and drop it. Otherwise, we are like nowhere, right? What's so different with Chai is, like, for example, I vibe coded a small API coding agent. All it does is it understands one of my code bases really well and has a complete deterministic response to an API endpoint creation. Now, every time I tell it like, give me an endpoint that takes this out of database and gives me this and puts this auth on it, it outperforms every other agent because it is purposefully built, right? For me, it's a time and tokens play, right? Should take a lot less tokens and a lot less time. That is when it is helpful, right? And should be reliable, somewhat deterministic. Like Cursor, one time you will explain it everything, and it may or may not do that. You may or may not be able to write those Cursor rules. It may or may not read those rules, right? It's very general purpose and generic. I think we are probably gonna go into a lot more personal agents space. People said you will have personal models, small models. I think we've not seen that happen, right? It's so hard to have a model on your device. But I think personal agents are probably going to win. And they will create personal small little websites or apps that you can bookmark in Slack or mobile, but it will do what you care about versus what a generic, agent would do. Like, go fix this bug in my code base without anything, just randomly read the internet, spend, $500 worth of tokens in 5 hours and then tell me you couldn't do it or did it in a way that I don't agree with, right? This is a completely different space from that, right? And I'll share this with, this non-technical leader I talked to when I was doing a lecture at Stanford. She vibe coded an agent during that class, which has context rewriting. She built an agent that rewrites the system prompt. So every time she uses it, it's a different agent. And I was like, holy shit, I could never have thought of it. And she's non-technical, by the way, right? I'm not like over pivoting on that non-technical piece. I think what has just hit me really hard is, like when I always used to write CSS from scratch. I've contributed to Bootstrap and whatnot. But when Tailwind came around, I was like, oh, I don't like it. It took me a while to figure out that Tailwind was not a framework. It was an API to use CSS, very well documented. And if you have a team of people, they will all understand it in the same way, and they will still be writing CSS from scratch. And it hit me like, oh, this is really good, right? I think that is what is going to happen with this space, right? People will build agents that you wouldn't even think about. And what we need is a standard way of building those. And all we are trying to do with Chai is make it as easy as possible for you to, oh, what if I had an agent to do this? And what if I got all of the code so I can mess around with that code? It's not drag and drop, build a workflow and do this and that, right?
Ahmed, I guess with the ability to be non-technical and develop agents that can have a lot of use cases, right? Because, and I agree with you, someone could be non-technical, but a great problem solver and end up thinking of use cases that maybe we don't even think about at times, right? What would be like an advantage to not being technical besides thinking outside of the box, but in the development cycle? Because it seems like there's almost like a language agnostic approach to this, where you could come from any programming language background and develop something, or no programming language at all. But is there something in there where maybe if I want to develop certain core features that I could develop them and then kind of tie that into it? Or is it more along the lines of, if I want to develop something on my own, I would develop it outside of the platform, tie that into the agent, and that way I'd have my customization there?
Yeah, so I think you could do anything. Obviously, I just shared, like, I think agents are just code, and you can do anything with code, right? It's just that there are some bets you take, and the bet we have taken is that, yeah, everything works on an API, so you can use in whatever programming language. Our first SDK is TypeScript SDK, which is, being downloaded more than 100,000 times a month. So, and I also validated this by looking at what is happening in the market. So Cursor, Lovable, V0, Bold, Chai, like I can keep going, Perplexity, all of these are on the web or potentially in TypeScript, right? Cursor is TypeScript, right? So there's something about web technologies in the modern web that is really good. I'm a web purist. I love the web platform, right? I think it's open and nobody has vendor locked this platform. You can do whatever you want with this platform. That is also winning, even though the space is kind of got invented with people who mostly use Python, right? And now how I think about it is Python is where the research is happening. And everything that is in production is actually TypeScript, right? It's the same problem. Like Ruby couldn't really work really well with TypeScript, or PHP in WordPress couldn't really work well with. So only TypeScript or Node really works if you have to be in that context, right? So Python doesn't really work well with TypeScript, right? Not a lot of people probably know this. I also recently found out that Python was actually built for web. It just never caught on. Like if you go back in history, you figure out like, oh, the guy actually built it for as a web programming language. It just caught on in a different way, right? So I think web, in the openness of web, the construct allows anybody to come in and build, right? And why we are kind of struggling with this idea is like when I was in college, I studied like 20 plus programming languages. I thought that was the best idea. Then I got self-corrected when I started building things. I was like, oh, maybe you should just focus on 5 things. And now I'm back to that same advice, like study as many different paradigms as you can, because it would be much easier to write code in the future, if the future is already here. And that is also why I think somewhere the idea got lost that we superimposed these frameworks and libraries on top of us and stopped thinking about what an average Joe or Jane needed, right? And now that average Joe and Jane are having a day with vibe coding, they are able to build a lot of it, and they're still coming to the technical people like, I'm not able to do this, or this is not secure what I just built, right? So I'm not saying that the jobs are going away. I'm saying that the piece of pie is going to be so big, so many more people will be able to do what we were able to do, right? And the automation, the productivity hacks that all these technical peoples, including me, have, I think a lot more people will be able to enjoy that because of how natural language can now build things for you, right? So you can customize to be very specific. You can customize it with TypeScript. You can put in your code. That's the idea, right? Like for example, we had Dreamweaver in 1989 or something, or 1991. We could drag and drop build websites, but we still got V0, Bolt, and Lovable. They are not drag and drop website builders. They give you complete code. That is the freedom we get. Like, it's not like it will build you things that it didn't even know their creators even didn't know about, right? Similar thing is happening with Chai. It is building agents that we never even thought of, that our platform couldn't even support. Because we support compute, people are adding small pieces of code, and they are doing fun things with it. That's like the superpower of vibe coding. What came, like, exactly the Tailwind example, right? I think I'm getting used to the idea that no code and low code might completely vanish, and it will be replaced by vibe coding, exactly like Tailwind, what Tailwind did to the CSS industry, right? The vibe coding is the Tailwind of AI agent space, right? It will still give you all control. It will just be easier for a lot of people to do a lot of great things, right? By using Tailwind, you are making things that, like, or by using shared C and UI components, you're just making the web beautiful, right? And you still have complete control of those components or the CSS. I think that is what vibe coding is going to do. You will still be able to build software. You will get just a lot more control over it. And when your skill has a limit, you can hire somebody who's more skillful to finish that last 20, 30, 50% of the idea, right? So, yeah.
So, Ahmad, like, one of the things that's been so fascinating about this conversation is this idea of agents and their worth. Because, I look around and you see things like Cursor and Windsurf having incredible valuations, right? I think we see new coding agents spawn up all the time. We're seeing new agents being used all over the place. And somebody very insightful asked me recently, they said, what is the secret sauce that holds value in an agent? In other words, like, what does an agent really have that's worth something if I can just go to Chai and say, give me an agent that does the same thing that guy's agent does, and get my own agent, and suddenly now I have like a copy or a fork of it. And I think that's kind of my question to you. For people that are going to build agents to help themselves, or perhaps to build a business on the top of, like, what should people understand about what gives an agent value? Value for your business, but also value for investment, or value for competitive value, or locked in value. Like, how should people understand what to do as they build around the sort of the value of agents?
Yeah, that is a super fun one, by the way. So we this is like a regular sync topic that we discuss internally, right? Where's the value here, right? And you would see that my decisions and my actions when building LangBase, predict that as well, right? I don't think building a framework, like, if you are a founder of an AI company today and not building framework, you better be right. Like, it's something I'm willing to fight over with everybody, right? Why do I think that? I think the mode is not building a framework. The mode is making it how easy you can make it, right? So I generally, I'm very visual. I know this is a podcast, so I generally would at this stage share my screen and draw what I'm thinking, but I'm gonna, try my best to do it, with just my voice, right? When you want this self-attention algorithm, this LLM, to have more knowledge, you basically build a gym, and you basically do RL, reinforcement learning, and you build a model, right? Which is what OpenAI, Claude, and what everybody big is doing, right? And I heard Sam Altman say this, like, do not try to improve our models. That is our job. If you try to do that, your startup will be gone, right? Do not, like, a lot of people are just trying to fix, the ChatGPT doesn't do this well, but this thing will do. They will just eat it up, bro, right? So that is their job, right? So when you are trying to increase the knowledge of a model, that is their job, right? Then there is the habits part. Do it this way. Always respond with this particular format, right? That is what fine tuning is for. And my take is that fine tuning was the old machine learning. It doesn't really work anymore, and you should not be fine tuning anything, right? So that this thing now begs the question, like, what am I supposed to do then, right? When knowledge training is their part and fine tuning doesn't really work really well, and by the time you fine tune, you have a new LLM, you're in continuously fine tuning new models. It just is very expensive and very little value, right? I think the biggest take here that I have is that context is king. You know how we say content is king? In this space, context is king. You work on the context, right? For example, I'll give you a quick summary of this. I have like Google I/O, Claude Code, Vancouver Web Summit, and then AI Engineering World Fair. These are the next 3 weeks I'm traveling to, right? So my schedule is a mess. In my flight plans and the lodging plans, all of that, I had to like build a very weird context in my brain when I was booking the flights. Okay, from this time to this time. Oh, now I don't prefer this, that. It was just a lot of context that my brain just built up when I was booking through all of those flights in travel, and it was absolutely useless 20 minutes after that, right? So you do not put that. That is not knowledge. It should not be inside the model. I'm never going to use that after the next 3 weeks. It should not be a fine tune. What is that thing then? That's context that was relevant at that point in time, right? Our brain does that all the time, right? Context is where you build your startup, right? Chai is actually, what Chai is able to do is it is able to learn the context from you when you're chatting. Oh, so this is what you want. It's able to rewrite and learn what the system prompt you need. Right? It has a bunch of scratch pads behind the scene that it basically completely destroys after it builds those agents. And we're thinking about completely open sourcing that thing, right? So build something that can have context like you do, right? That is where the value is, right? How your agents learn about some context, how that context is helpful in generating value to you. That is what will really help, right? Gone are the days when it was very hard to figure out Webpack. So some Guillermo Roch and Tim created Next.js, so people do not have to just build Webpack configurations. Now you can just print out tens of thousands of lines of code very easily, right? So frameworks are not saving you anything, right? Abstractions this early actually hurt, right? I think we should over pivot on context. What is the context that this agent would need in when it is working for a salesperson or an engineer or this? I think anything you build around context would be huge. Chai is built around context. That is what people are enjoying about it, right? So you go write chat with PDF in Chai, in Lovable, Bold, Chat, GPT, Perplexity. Only Chai will understand the context of what you're trying to do, right? Everybody else will be like, oh, what about chat with PDF? What do you want me to do, right? So I think context, whatever agent you build for whatever type of community, whatever type of job that you're trying to automate or whatever, do not think in terms of this LLM and that LLM, because LLMs are going to improve, or this VS Code or that. Think around how you will always have the best possible context for your agents. And by the time OpenAI is improving there, like I just heard, I don't know how true this is, but Claude is training a model, and this could be absolutely wrong, by the way. It's a rumor. They're training a model that will generate code, and it will test if the code generated actually works, and then give it to you. So anybody who's trying to build software or startups around fixing Claude's generated code, like type checking it, will just die, because they will improve the quality of that model. What they can never do is they can never have the context that you have, right? They can never have the context of what you care about, what your customers care about. So build your startup around context. There is the value in context. We do this exercise all the time. When you join a company, no matter how skilled you are, first month you are just learning about the different workflows, different contexts in this team setting, right? And that is irreplaceable, right? So I would say that the value is in context. Context is king. We need to come up with a lot of amazing design patterns around it. The simplest pattern that we have came up with is agent.md file, which just starts printing a bunch of things, but it is not static. It is not like a cursor rule file, right? It is always changing. Like, our context is always changing. So you can, internally we call it, strong opinions loosely by an agent, right? That is super powerful.
Well, very quickly, we've arrived at the end of our conversation. I think people are probably very excited to try this thing out. I will say we were trying it out a little bit before the podcast, and there is very little friction before you have something that's running. So I would advise everyone to go at least play with it and see what you can do with it. So, Ahmad, for people that may want to use it and maybe they want to try and see whether it can build an agent that can build agents itself, can you let people know how they can get plugged in and try things out?
Yeah, you go to Chai.new, CHAI.new, and you basically ask it to chat with PDF, and it will build an agent for you. Make me an agent that does this. Again, start simple, start small. Do not throw do everything for me and clean my kitchen while at it. Right? So that would really help. And then study langbase.com/docs or /agents. Like, we have a lot of documentation around it. If you want to brush up on this, we are built, langbase.com is built for people who do not have machine learning degrees, who are not PhDs, who are just like you and me, who are able to send API requests in whatever programming language. If you are one of those people, we would love to have you try this out.
Great. And, where's the LangBase and Chai community these days? You guys hang out on Twitter? Do you guys have a Discord? Where can people get plugged in with other users?
Yeah, so we have a Twitter account, obviously, but we are a small team. We just started a new Discord channel, Discord server, langbase.com/Discord. I'm excited to see you there. All the team is there, so would love to hang out.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that is going to be it for us today. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Modern Web Podcast. Thanks, of course, to our guest, Ahmad. As always, we say the conversation does not stop here. You can find Ahmad and his team online, as you just heard, at Chai.new, at LangBase, and also on the Discord. Definitely check those out. We'll have links in the show notes below as well if you need those. As for me, you can find me online at RoboCell. Danny, you can find online at DThompsonDev. And Adam, you can find online at Adam Rackis. As for the podcast, you can find us online at moderndotweb.com or on Twitter at modern.web. And as we close out, we would just like to thank today's sponsor, This.Labs, one last time, who would like me to remind you that sometimes it's hard to bridge the gap between business objectives and tech implementation, and it can get messy. This. Is trusted by top names like Meta, Google, and T-Mobile, and they love helping business leaders fulfill their strategic digital initiatives, especially around things like AI. Check them out at this.co. One more time, that's THISDOT.co. All right, everybody. See y'all next time.